Hello everybody, here we are today talking about the Florida Panthers and why I think they're about to become the NHL's newest villains. But before we get started with that, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. Being said, let's get on into it. So the Panthers are a team we've been talking about a lot in recent days because of the trade period, but I also think something that's going to be talked about more in the coming months is going to be the fact that, in my opinion, this team is going to be one of the more unlikable sides in the NHL, which feels really weird because few years ago that didn't seem like that would be anything close to the case, but I think there are three reasons, probably even more for being honest, as to why this team is not going to be so loved as they once were here just a couple of years ago, like we already talked about. The first one of those we can probably say is Brad Marchand. Brad was acquired from Boston, and he's been a guy that for the course of his career just isn't liked a lot. This is a player that will lick other players. This is a player that will go and cross that line and, again, kind of be a dirty player as much as people probably wouldn't want to admit it. And this is a guy that can go out there and do special things against your team and has been part of some good teams where players and fans have had to watch him go on and go out there and hoist the cup just one time. But there have been plenty of sides that have seen Boston, beat them, and then they have to just say, wow, that guy is a guy I don't like. And I don't like the fact that he is getting to play when my team isn't. And it's not just him. I think that there are a variety of players in the locker room for the Panthers that aren't so lovable. Matthew Tkachuk is a prime example of this. You either love him or you hate him. Then you've got Sam Bennett, which is part, again, of this team that is really just able to go anywhere they want to go. And what I mean by that is that they aren't afraid to cross that line. They aren't afraid to get physical, and they aren't afraid to let you know that this is their ice. They own it, whether it's home or away. This is a team that is going to try to rattle you. And so I think with that, paired with the success they've seen, this is not going to be good because the playoffs, more viewers, more talk on social media, and just a bigger spotlight in general. If something bad happens where it's a bad look for Marchand or Tkachuk or Bennett or whoever on this team, it's going to be something that just gets brought to bigger attention or more attention. And I think, again, you could see multiple of these guys in the lineup or on the ice at the same time where something goes down and then it just really doesn't look very flattering for the fan base. And then people will say, they're all in the same jersey, and I'm not really liking that jersey anymore. So there is that. Now, the second thing that we could probably talk about here is LTIR. You all know what I'm talking about here. People are not a fan of it. They feel it's a loophole, even though, again, some may say that it's a necessary evil. And this is a thing we've seen before with Tampa Bay and Vegas especially. People did not like that. And what do we see? Those teams benefit from using LTIR. It is, again, a great thing to use if you're able to go out there and use it effectively. And I think a lot of people, again, are seeing what we're seeing now here with the Tkachuk injury, where I think he has to miss at least 10 games. And with that, him being moved off the LTIR has allowed some things to kind of open up with this team for the Panthers, and they are benefiting from using that. So with now them being kind of thrown into this category a little bit more, I think with the spotlight being on them, and again, some of these big trades they've made in recent days, this is where if they go on another deep run, people say, well, yeah, but look how they used LTIR. And that is something that isn't their fault because, again, you can do that and you can see a lot of success out of this, especially when a player like Tkachuk probably comes back and is healthy. And that's where the fire will probably roar a little bit hotter, as if Tkachuk comes back healthy and then guys like Seth Jones and Brad Marchand end up having good runs in the playoffs, people are probably just going to get really, really angry about this. I don't think it's too surprising, but I was a little bit shocked that this wasn't talked about a little bit more again too surrounding this team, which is why I think we're going to see just a vicious 180 from the Panthers being that team where like, oh man, I hope that they win the cup, to being like, I want them out of the playoffs early. And maybe, just maybe, this will be the leading factor. And then the final thing that we're going to talk about is recent success. I believe we've talked about this before for the channel, but when you put out about 1,100 videos, it is hard to recollect everything. 2022, they won the President's Trophy. 2023, Eastern Conference champions. 2024, Stanley Cup champions. And during the way, I think this was all really exciting. And over the 3-year period, people were like, oh yeah, this is great, because they were, in a sense, lovable losers, not a great attendance, not really anything going on in playoff history besides 1996. And you knew that if they made the playoffs, they just weren't really going anywhere. There was a couple years we thought maybe, but at the end of the day, this was an organization that kind of filled up one of the spots in the league, and that was that. And it was not necessarily that they were everybody's second favorite team, but more of, oh yeah, I'm okay with them doing this. So when they ended up jumping out there and winning the President's Trophy, it was like, oh, this is cool. They won a playoff series for the first time in decades. And then in 2023, they played underdogs against a team like Vegas. They were really battered. And I think people were like, oh man, that final game in 2023 was really heartbreaking. Maybe they can rally and go on and win the cup. And that's exactly what they did. And they probably got a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because they were first-time champions. So all of those things kind of sugarcoating over what's been a fantastic 3 years that I think if it had been another organization, especially a more successful one previously, more people would have hated them. But let's say for the sake of it that they go out there and they make it to the Stanley Cup final for a third straight year, people could look at this and say, you know, I'm not loving this really. They're one of the last two teams standing 3 years in a row, and they have the potential to possibly go back-to-back. Suddenly you have a team, President's Trophy, you know, 3-time Eastern Conference champions, 2-time Stanley Cup winners. At that stage, it is 4 years that is pure dominance, I think, in a lot of ways. And that's why I would say that if they go out there and do something big again this year, especially with the whole LTIR talk and having a player like Marchand, this is going to be just a snowball effect where going into next season especially, people are not going to be loving this team as much anymore. And that's that. But I will kind of highlight again too why I think this was kind of brushed over as well. Sergei Bobrovsky had never won a cup. Barkov had been there for a long time, hadn't won a cup. They did. People are excited now that they've got their cups. I think that storyline changes a little bit. I'm kind of, going off on a little bit of a different path there with it, but it is the case. And then I guess if you wanted to throw in a fourth reason as well, two big trades, Seth Jones, obviously being a massive one, Brad there, and then they ended up getting Vitek Vanacek, which isn't as big of a deal, but this is a team that is been the more aggressive team out in the Eastern Conference, and people might say, you know what, compared to some other sides, we are not liking how intense they are getting, and it is a competition, but then you feel like, well, we couldn't do that, we couldn't get some of that talent, and now we're a little bit bitter. And unless somebody stops them out east, I think that especially in their conference, the Panthers are going to be super unlovable. So now I want to hear what you guys have to say. Do you think that because of all these factors, as well as maybe some other reasons, that if Florida played a team like Toronto that isn't always as liked, maybe fans would side more with the Leafs due to lack of success? Or do you think that the Panthers will be able to kind of keep up their mojo, their persona, if you will, and everybody will kind of root for them again, not only for this season, but in the coming years? Or do you feel like they will kind of get thrown in that category of teams like Tampa Bay and Vegas, where they do get a little bit more hated around the league? Let me know. Also, I did kind of want to highlight, what do we see with a lot of these teams that aren't very well liked? A lot of winning. That tends to be something that sets people off. Remember the Hawks back in the 2010s, as well as the Penguins. You win, people don't like you. You win big things, people really don't like you. So is it all necessarily all these things? No. But I think that the Panthers bring a certain brand and identity to this winning, which also kind of could add to why people aren't liking them as much. But anyway, that's just one guy's opinion. What's yours? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you love hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.